everyone, my name is Christina Sundari, and today I've got a very special guest on my YouTube channel. This is Nicole. This is Nicole Moreno-Deinzer, one of my really good friends and the CEO of Epiphania Magazine.
Oh, I love it. She said both my last names right and the magazine right.
Love this girl.
And I just totally grew up her boob.
Okay, that's okay.
I just realized that when I gave her a hug.
So today we're going to be talking about some really interesting topics. So I know normally on my channel it's either a fashion lookbook or it's a beauty tutorial, but today I wanted to open up and talk about some social issues that have kind of been top of mind for me. I was inspired really by the Me Too campaign, and we just came back from New York for Fashion Week and we got these really awesome shirts, which we're going to talk about in the video. We're going to talk about sex, we're going to talk about, you know, relationships, and a lot of other things that you probably wouldn't normally hear from an Indian and a Mexican chick.
Yeah, look at that. So again, we're going to talk a lot about this campaign. We're going to talk about Me Too. We're going to talk about how we approach relationships coming from our cultures and, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly in a relationship.
Don't forget to subscribe by hitting the red button down below, like the video, and then hit the bell.
Hit her bell. Just hit her bell over and over again. You like that, wouldn't you?
I would.
You like that. All right, guys.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
We're such nerds.
We are. It's funny. We're adulting so hard, guys. Let me show you guys. We have like cookies.
We have chocolate covered raisins.
And then I made baguettes with like little chicken pieces and apple slices.
This is the real reason why I asked her to be on my channel, because she's like Martha Stewart.
This is how you stay married for like 5 years.
So when we were in New York for Fashion Week, we attended an event around this campaign.
Yes.
And the campaign is really just kind of encouraging both men and women to be better partners.
Love Better. It was like a pop-up store. We went in there and they had all these Valentine's things, but they're all like sort of quirky and sort of like interesting, like little heart candies that says loser or you're an idiot. And we're just like, oh, how cute. Like they're sort of funny, right? And we were thinking we could buy some things for our Valentine's, but they're like, oh, nothing's for sale. It's through the One Love Foundation. And they're all about the reason why the balloons had like, you know, the balloons was like, let me check your texts. The cards were like, on the cards, like, I liked it better when you were hotter.
They were so funny.
They were funny, but I guess, well, those are sometimes things people say in relationships, and I guess very negative relationships.
Yes, very true.
And so the whole campaign was about this Valentine's Day, instead of buying things for people, why don't you just aim to be a better partner? It
was kind of cool how they took such negative messages and then they just kind of played it in a really funny way. Like I remember one of the balloons saying, "Are you really gonna wear that?" And my ex used to always say that to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Your outfits are really cute.
He would say that to me all the time.
If you guys follow her on Instagram, you know her outfits are on point all the time. So I don't know why he would say that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
You make him look better.
So I know I've been kind of coy about my status, you know, but if you've been following...
She's single, ready to mingle, guys. If you are from the East Coast and have an accent, or if you know a guy from the East Coast with an accent, a New Yorker accent, please message us. That would be great. She's laughing, but she knows it. We just got back from New York. Those New Yorker accents. That's why she's going to move to New York, guys. For dudes with New Yorker accents. Hit her up. She'll even settle for Jersey accents.
You done?
I'm done. I'm just letting people know. I'm letting them know.
This is my official wing woman right here. And yeah, we just came back from New York. And I had no idea that New York accents were so sexy until this last trip. I never would have even looked at it.
Well, the last times you were in New York, you were with... Can I say, like, husband or significant other? I'm just gonna say
yeah.
The last couple of times she was in New York, she was with her husband, so you probably didn't pay attention to how hot that accent
I guess
is.
not. If you guys have been following me for a while, I started my blog back in the middle of 2016. I actually was married at the time and came out of my marriage towards the end of last year. And big reason was that I was not being treated the way I deserved to be treated. I got to a point where I just realized that, you know what, as much as I love this person and as much as I want this relationship to work, I love myself too. And I need to do what's right for me. And I still have a whole life in front of me. I just turned 30 last year. And, you know, some people might say, well, shouldn't you be thinking about kids? And shouldn't you be thinking about, you know, like the rest of your life?
Should. Like, right? That's still so ingrained in our minds. Like, we're doing this video now, but we're using certain words. Like, this is the time we should. But it's like, who set up those guidelines?
Right.
You know,
yeah.
it's like people are having kids at much later age. People are figuring themselves much later. So, you know, she's coming from an Indian culture. I'm coming from a Latin background. And the second you get married is, well, second you're 25 and not married, people are going to be like, what's wrong with you? Then you get married, it's like, where are the kids? And it's like, I don't know, at the park.
Sorry, I keep eating, but
we're taking turns eating. So basically what you need is an East Coast guy with a New Yorker accent who would give you a burger.
Give me a burger and chocolate covered strawberries.
See?
I would marry him. I would.
You probably would. You'd probably text me the picture of the mail and be like, I'm getting married tomorrow. I'd be like, I would get married to that guy too. So your relationship.
We digress. I love being a trailblazer. I love wearing hot pink pants because, you know, it's different. And I feel like when I was with my ex, I was a totally different person. Like, I was almost like I was afraid to step outside of the box because
you felt like you had to be a certain way to fit this nice little image. So we were at an event and I'm like, hey, I noticed on your Instagram you're doing more, you tend to be going out to more events, and I felt like this was the person she was trying, this is the person that she was meant to be, basically. She just was networking more, her Instagram game was on point, and she's like, well, yeah, and I was just like, there has something happen here, and then she's like, yeah, we're no longer together, and I'm like, well, I could tell that. By but also by her happiness. She just seems more confident and happier. I know.
Yeah. Oh, thank you,
You're welcome.
I really am, and you know, I've met all kinds of women that have been in similar situations to the one that I was in, and walking away is not easy at all. And you know, I still remember that day that I was moving some of my stuff out. He wasn't there, but I literally would stop every 20 minutes or so, and I would just cry. Because I knew that my life was going to change, you know, and I'd gotten so used to him. I mean, because I knew him in college and then we had dated for a few years and then we got married. So I was really used to him, and just thinking about a life without him was really, really terrifying.
And I think it's also getting used to who you are in that relationship. Now you're a whole new person.
Yeah.
And you spent this whole time building up this identity. And now you have to build a new identity. And when you hit your 30s, sometimes that might be difficult to do because you know the consequences. You're not in your crazy early 20s anymore. You know, life, you know, bills have to get paid, you know, things have to get done. And then if you went through this whole time with a partner who, you know, for better or for worse, you at least had a partner in your life to sort of, I don't know, face the craziness of the world. So now you have to do it on your own. So that's why I think it's really important. That's why we have this video. Is it's why it's important to have healthy relationships and two partners together that are equal partners. This is why romantic movies sometimes piss me off. This is why even sometimes romantic novels piss me off. And this is also why I feel like parents don't talk about relationship with their kids enough. They talk about the ideal love. You get married, you have kids. They don't talk about the multiple relationships you're going to have before you get married. If that's your culture, you could, you know, you could be one of those people that stays a virgin until marriage. Good for you. I'm sure it was not.
It was not. These are two Catholics right here, so if you're a devout Catholic, you might want to turn the video off. Can't talk to these two heathens.
We're going to get comments you sluts are going to hell. And I'll be like, you know what? We look real good in summer dresses. Parents really need to talk about relationships with their kids as their kids get older, maybe in teenagers and things like that. The good and the bad and the ugly, because romantic relationship movies always show a couple and they get in that one big fight. Someone cheats, someone has a drinking problem, something bad. Then they break up and usually at the end they come back together. I'm like, that's not true. A relationship is not that one big fight. A relationship can sometimes be little fights or things going unsaid for years and years and years, and you taking jabs at each other. And this is why emotional abuse and verbal abuse are very real. A lot of times people, when they think abuse, they think physical abuse, but it's if you're constantly putting toxic energy into another person, you know, you make comments all the time and you're just not supportive and you nitpick at them, that's going to end a relationship more so than that one big fight. If you're in a relationship and all you've ever had is one big fight and then you come back together, I don't even know if you guys are being truly honest with one another. I'm Nick and I have had multiple big fights. fights where like, I'm like, I really would like to strangle you right now so hard. But I'm not going to show that on my Instagram. So I guess I'm talking two things. One is that relationships aren't always about that one big fight. But then two, another thing I don't like is that people, to not give up on a relationship because of that one thing, right? If it's multiple things in multiple years and no one wants to fix it, then yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and what I will say about that, because yeah, realistically, like, it's not one big fight that's the end all be all, you know?
I wish it was sometimes. It'll make life easier.
Well, yeah. Some of our fights, I swear, I thought it was like the end all be all. I consider myself a pretty strong and independent woman. I don't let people's words really bother me too much. But what was happening in my marriage was I felt like the person that I was not good enough, ever. And
that's a horrible feeling.
You don't cook, you don't do this, you could do this better, you don't have what it takes. I was told, brace yourself for this, I was told that I could never be an entrepreneur. And I was also told,
make me want to stab him right now.
I was also told that I would never make it as a fashion influencer. And when I wanted to start my YouTube channel, I was told not to. I was also told not to start a website. When I stepped out of that relationship, I realized that
he was an idiot. You've been to Fashion Week. People know you.
How many times? 3 times now I've been to Fashion Week.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, it was just...
He was super smart, guys.
But women listen to that, you know? Because it's like, when it's your husband, like, you of course like want them to be happy. And if they have a problem with something that you're doing, it's natural, like, for us to be like, well, okay, well, let me try to make this right, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want me to do better? Like, what can I do to, like, earn your love and to earn your respect? There were a lot of things that held me back from moving forward. Like, if you look at my outfits on my blog from
even our Instagram
a year ago to now,
I saw a difference. Like,
it's night and day.
More
night and day.
Makeup and just different poses.
And I didn't even realize that until after I got out of the relationship. Like, a lot of the things that he had said to me had nothing to do with the content. It was more about being able to control me. And I would even tell him up front, like, you're being controlling. And he would look at me and be like, are you crazy? I would never try to control you.
And then I could just imagine you're thinking, wait, am I going crazy?
Yeah, I'm like, am I going crazy? And like, guys wonder why women become crazy. It's like, because they do things like this. Crazy. You do things like this to us.
I know a lot of people that have been in like physical abusive relationships. I shared with her, I had a lot of family members that were in a lot of abusive relationships, more physically, financially, and definitely like verbally. But your story is different because there wasn't any external bruises.
Correct.
Right? It's not like people could see it. It's not like people could see like, oh my gosh, she's getting abused. So how did you, these are 2 hard questions and you could be like, no, we're not answering this. But one is like, how did you tell your parents that you're going to leave?
I did not see that question coming.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No. I want to answer that.
Because, you know, we both come from very like family-oriented cultures. I guess, how did you approach it to your parents? Because I guess that conversation also has to come with like the verbal and emotional abuse because they didn't get to see external bruises on their daughter. So how do you explain that to people? Because I know sometimes there's still a lot of stigma out there that verbal and emotional abuse isn't a real thing or it's not as dangerous or bad as physical abuse.
My parents didn't really understand until after I moved home. And, you know, they're both kind of like, you know, like, what happened? You know, can you guys figure it out? And it was easier for me to tell my mom just because, you know, just sharing that with another woman, you know, it's a little bit easier. My dad wasn't really understanding the whole, and this goes back to what you were saying, he wasn't understanding the verbal and the emotional abuse. Because both of my parents were like, oh, so he's never hit you? And I was like, no. Okay, so this is kind of crazy. So one day we got into this massive fight and he was just yelling and screaming at me. So I hit the record button on my phone.
Smart move, guys.
Yeah.
Do that.
You never know. You never know. And he had been drinking too, so I didn't know like what.
You're gonna get divorced. You need something.
So it's recording, and I let my mom listen to it, and she was literally terrified when she heard it, because then the
Her
first
mom
question,
is so sweet.
and the first question she asked after that was, did he hit you? And I said, no, he didn't hit me. And she was like, well, I'm glad that you're not with him, because it's, for other people, like, I can only imagine what that was like for her, because if it was you, for example, and, you know, like, I heard a guy talking to you like that, like, I would have anxiety, like, for you. I'd be like, oh my God, like, I can't even imagine.
I can just imagine, like, if you're, like, a mom and having to hear your kid go through that, because, you know, they remember you as, like, a little girl, and giving birth to you and all that good stuff, so, I'm like, oh, that would be terrifying.
Yeah. So my dad, I think, I didn't show him the video. So both of them had been married once before. My dad also. And so I think...
Your mom was married before?
Yeah.
Someone else married him? No offense.
I think especially in cultures like ours that are a little bit more traditional, verbal and emotional abuse are still not really seen as bad, obviously, as physical abuse. And of course, not to say that physical abuse is not bad. Of course, it's absolutely terrible. But the other two types are bad too. I didn't really tell anybody about what was happening with me. I didn't tell my close friends. I didn't tell my siblings. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone when I was in it, just because I was protecting him, you know? I didn't want anyone to think that he was this horrible person, and, you know, like...
It's interesting that you say that, so I'm going to pull this up a little bit.
Okay.
It's interesting that you say that. Was it protecting him or protecting the image of your marriage?
Oh, it was probably both, honestly. Yeah, because I didn't want people to think that, you know, we have problems and all that stuff. And if you looked at the pictures, when I used to post pictures of the two of us on my Instagram, I mean, they look very happy. I mean, you would think that we had, like, this amazing marriage. I mean, we were traveling together. We were always dressed up together. I mean, like, on Instagram, I mean, it looked like we had a perfect marriage, you know? And I did like that image, especially since it did help me in the beginning too, because I noticed, just kind of looking at statistics, that the most likes I would get were pictures with him. So then I realized, okay, so my followers like that I'm in a relationship, and they like that I'm in a relationship with a good looking guy, you know, because I know a lot of my followers are also Indian, and they're women, you know, so it doesn't hurt to have some eye candy on there.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you can still say that, because it's not like her ex was hideous. He is a good looking guy.
He's really good looking. It all started kind of coming out my 30th birthday, actually, because I went to Mexico with a girlfriend, and that's when it started coming out, because...
I was wondering why you did a girl trip, because you don't do a lot of girl trips.
Yeah, especially for my 30th. I mean, 30th is a big milestone. You would think that you would do that with your person. Neha?
Okay.
Yeah, so we went together, and a few days before, we had gotten into this huge fight, but before I left, he said, okay, well, let's try to make things better, and, you know, we'll turn things around when you come back. And my ex has a drinking problem. And I guess long story short, I'm in Mexico, and then I get this drunken phone call from him, and he's just cussing at me. This is on my birthday, you know, he's yelling at me. And I hung up on him, because I was like, you know what, I'm completely fed up. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. Mind you, I've put up with a lot of conversations like that without hanging up on him. I would listen to that for maybe hours at a time. You know, I used to deal with it a lot more compared to the way I was dealing with it that night. But at that point, I think I was kind of over it. It was crazy, because I didn't even realize, like, how long I was really putting up with it for. But, like...
Or how bad it was.
Maybe
just seeing, like, a friend's reaction. It's like...
That was eye-opening. Like, seeing the way she reacted, I was like, oh, this isn't normal. Well, I knew that it wasn't normal, but the dots, like, weren't connecting in my head that this really isn't normal, and you can't be in this.
This really is bad.
Yeah, but this is really bad. Yeah. So,
I'm sorry you have to go through that.
No. It's all over now.
Yes, it is.
And then, so that was like when my friends first started figuring it out.
You were just a human being that was attracted to another human being for a short period of time, and then it just didn't work. But you learned something from that relationship, right? You learned something about yourself. You learned something about them. You are not a failure. And I think a lot of it has to come from external pressure and also internal pressure. All these messages that we give ourselves.
That was probably the hardest thing for me in my recovery. And it wasn't even feeling like I failed, like it was a failed marriage. It was that I felt like I had failed myself. Like I made this huge mistake, you know, and then I dragged my family and my friends into this with me. Like I dragged everyone down this rabbit hole with me. I completely messed up. I picked the wrong person. I was so angry at myself. Forgiveness was something that I definitely learned, you know, with forgiving myself, you know, just kind of understanding that, you know, it's okay. You know, like people make mistakes and, you know, like I made a mistake and that's okay. As long as you took a lesson from it and you can move forward in a positive way, then it's never a waste. And I've heard so many successful business people talk about failures, you know, like the only real failure in life is never trying. That's a true failure.
Do you feel like what you did was brave because you're Indian, or do you think it was brave because you're a woman? Like, do you feel like what you did was brave? And then secondly, like, why do you think people think what you did is so brave?
I think it was pretty brave, actually, because I mean, first of all, like, walking away from a relationship is hard. Any kind of relationship is hard. And then being Indian on top of that, where people like to talk about everything, especially drama. People love hearing about drama. You say one word, oh, so-and-so's having problems. Oh, they want to know all about it. It was a big part of me that was like, well, what are people going to think? Like, I did think about that, you know? I was like, well, it's going to change my relationships with a lot of my friends, because a lot of my friends are married and a lot of my friends are Indian. So I knew that, you know, my relationships with them is going to change. That's just
like, would you not be able to be friends with them?
I mean, no, I'd still be friends with them, but it would just be different, you know, like, because, you know, we used to do all these things as couples, you know, like, couples this and couples dinner and stuff. But now it's like, I'm like the single auntie that shows up like drunk at events. Not that I do that.
Drunk at like a 2-year-old birthday party, like, hey!
Yeah, I might be drunk for that. You could say, like, I was probably set for life financially, but, the way he treated me wasn't right. From the outside, you know, people, they don't know all that. All they see is what they see in social media and, you know, on Facebook and all that stuff. And of course, like at weddings and events and stuff, you know, that's all they saw. So, you know, people probably think that I'm crazy. But I mean, I think it is like a brave thing for me to have, you know, said, you know, I'm willing to forego this, you know, comfortable lifestyle and, you know, take kind of like a, you know, a massive detour.
We all know the statistics. Like, if you grow up in an abusive household, there's a good chance that you're going to be an abuser or fall for an abuser.
Yes. Nicole and I are just very, very open, and, you know, we're really easygoing, and we kind of just say, like, whatever we're thinking. So that's why we thought it'd be really fun to do a video together, because
Gemini and Libra.
Yeah. What do they say about Geminis and Libras?
Oh, yeah. I told her this because, so I was really into science when I was like younger, and that Geminis and Libras, like, they're really passionate, so they can make really good fuck buddies. But relationships suck. So if she was a guy, we would be like this.
We would be like this.
And yeah, my first ever sexual encounter, was a Gemini.
Oh, really?
It was really
What was
good.
mine? Oh, he was a Capricorn. Never mind.
You need structure in life.
Yeah.
See, and I think that's why Geminis and Libras can't work, because we're both very like laissez-faire. So we need someone to be like, dude, it's like more structure.
Structure, yes, I agree with that.
If we were like, okay, if we were like a lesbian relationship, can you imagine half of like the common sense shit would not get done? Like,
we'd be like, let's do this.
Like,
let's do this.
Well, like in the car with a cute outfit, we're like, oh, we need gas, don't we? Or like, where's the perfect car?
That, yeah.
Or like,
did we even drive?
Do we have a car? We did not have it. This is my language.
Oh, we Ubered.
Oh, yeah. So we talked a lot about like if you're in a relationship, what you can do if it's not working. But if you are outside of that relationship, if you're like a friend or a family member, like, okay, so if you are going through a difficult time in a relationship and you're really seeking other people's advice, and maybe, and this is just coming from me because I've had people ask me for advice when they're in a horrible relationship, you cannot tell friends and family members, because I'm kind of in trouble with doing this, like, oh, well, you should leave it, right? And that, because to me, this is such an easy solution.
It is an easy solution, but it's so complicated. And I think that's part of the reason why I never really shared much about my relationship with outside people, because the only time you really want to talk to someone about your problems is exactly what I just said, a problem. You know, they don't, and they're not going to hear like the positive. You know, they're not around you 24/7. They don't know the nature of your relationship. Exactly. They only know one side, and that's the side that you tell them. So it's hard getting advice from other people. You know, even therapists. I mean, we saw a therapist, and I thought she was an absolute idiot.
Oh, Nick and I saw a therapist one time. And I didn't like her because I could totally tell she was a cougar and was really trying to get
I think mine was a cougar too.
I was trying to get into Nick's pants. And I left and I was like so sad. And he's like, what? And I'm like, look, I'm not trying to be super sensitive, but she was definitely giving you the vibes and definitely was choosing your side, and fuck that bitch. And I'm like crying even more in the car. Like she made me feel like every problem in our marriage was my fault.
Did we have the same one?
This is like cougars shouldn't be therapists. I was like, like, and then Nick left.
Honest to God, that's how ours was too.
And Nick left feeling really good.
Yeah, and then he'd be like, I knew it was your fault. I'm like, what?
I'm not crazy.
It's not me, damn it. And even with therapists, I mean, keep in mind, you know, therapists only make money when you go see them. Do you really think they want, and okay, we're gonna get hate comments again. Do you really think that they legitimately want to help you, to solve your problems? And I thought about that so many times when we were seeing our therapist. I was like, if she solved all of her problems, then she's out of a customer. You know, like, would she really want what's best for us, or is she just kind of helping us, you know, solve some of the short-term problems, but not the long-term problems?
I think therapists are good, if you find a good one, to teach you how to communicate better. I think that's their strongest tool, but don't go in there thinking they're going to solve your problems.
Yeah, exactly. I really love what you just said. Yeah, communication. And I think that's so important in any kind of relationship. You know, being open and being honest. And that goes back to the whole Aziz Ansari thing. You know, you want to open your mouth and say, don't touch me, or go away, or I'm leaving. You know, sometimes you have to use verbal cues to, you know, get your point across.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm giving the right advice. And a lot of times it's just like you need someone just to hear you vent. Yes. Make sure you're not crazy. Because I
think is totally okay.
And I tell family members and friends that, like, look, I'm not in your relationship. I'm not in your marriage. I don't see the good stuff that he does, and I don't see why you're staying. But, you know, I want you to know that you can be open and honest with someone, because I know relationships can sometimes be very isolating. It's just you two. I
guess my policy now is when people come to me with, you know, like, oh, he did this, I don't know what to do. I try to help them, like, think about it more, you know? Like, so I ask questions. Yeah, I ask more questions to help them think about it.
Because also, I can be very stubborn. I realize by myself. I don't like to take a lot of people's advice.
I'm like that too. I think it's the mind of an entrepreneur, that's why.
Yeah, it's like, no, I know better, okay? I need you to listen.
So my first cousin, she lives in, I think she lives in India still, but she was having issues with her husband, and he was actually hitting her. And she told her mom, and her mom said, you're married, figure it out. And that makes me so sad.
Yeah.
And it also makes me feel really blessed to be living in a country where if you want to walk away, you can.
There's laws. And we also live in California, so we have this wonderful thing where there's like, sort of like the I forgot what it's called, no reason divorce. Like, either party could divorce without having to tell the other party.
No fault divorce.
No fault divorce. Sometimes there's people that might think, if you have an argument, that's like the end of your relationship, or they might just think he's like the bad guy, and they won't be diplomatic about it. And it's hard to find that friend, but it's also like, I don't talk to my family about it for two reasons. I want to protect the image of our marriage and the image of him. So I give my sisters like tidbits here and there, but not a lot of information. I don't even tell my parents a whole lot about. And it's not like there's like physical abuse going on when we have arguments. It's just really negative words, and we're just like trying to figure out through something. Like any other couple, we have arguments. But the second thing is, you know, a lot of my extended family, and even like my grandma, and I love my grandma, and I love my grandpa when he was alive. They're older. They're old school Mexican. As long as Nick has a job, and that's pretty much the only requirement. You know, whatever. Like, he cheats on you, that's fine. He drinks, that's fine. As long as he provides a job and a place for you to live, that's basically it. I'm like, that's sort of setting the bar fucking low. I'm sorry. That's like, so he could, like, so I'm like, what kind of job? Like, you could sell drugs, right? Is that the job? Like, you know, it's like really low bar standards. And I love the fact that my parents really set the bar up higher. My dad has 4 daughters and was very adamant of that we all be with someone, like, we're all our own independent women, but we all be with someone that admires that independence. So we have, like, it's interesting because in family dynamics, I see both. Like, my extended family has one way of thinking, but my parents were very like, no, you don't have to think that way.
Yeah. And I definitely think that things are changing, especially with, you know, like, newer generations, and we're kind of stepping away from kind of like the way that things used to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of it is still there, you know, like my cousin that's like not going to leave her husband even though he's hitting her, you know, like, and then kids watch that, you know, kids see that, and then they think, especially if it's a girl, she thinks like, well, that that's normal, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I'm supposed to deal with this. And that's not true. And I think this goes back to, I think we were talking about this at our Women of Color dinner, that we really need to change the way that girls are raised. And we need to be, you know, like, we need to be teaching them that, you know, like, it's okay to say no. And if a guy wants to take you out on a date and take you back to his apartment, you can say no. It's okay. It's your right.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with everything that he says.
And just because he's taking you out to dinner doesn't mean you get, like, he automatically gets to have sex, unless you want to have sex.
Yeah.
If you want to have sex and you're like, okay, then that's you.
Yeah, then that's on you. Yeah, but I think that there's almost like an expectation, like, and I still do this. Like, I'm really guilty of doing this. Like, when we were in New York and when we were going out, this girl's like, we are not paying for any drinks tonight. And then my attitude is, well, I don't want to talk to him. And then that's the wrong attitude right there. Because just because he buys me a drink doesn't mean I have to talk to him.
And I was like joking. Okay, guys, I don't want you to think like we're not independent. I don't want you to think, okay, we were with her and the other girl.
Oh yeah, she was totally kidding, by the way. I really sound like anti-feminist.
I know. I'm like, dude, everyone's going to hate me in the comments. Okay, so we're with her and our friend Jennifer. They're both recently single. So I wanted to push them to go talk to guys because they're just like, they're single. They're both really beautiful women. And they're just sort of like sitting in the corner, like with their drink. And I'm like, hello, like go talk to people. Like
comfortable in the corner.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to just spread myself out and take the whole corner. So it forces you to go talk to people. So
I'm really like, I'm social, but I'm really shy, I realized.
Yeah. I think it's really also shy. Because you guys both her and Jennifer were in like long-term relationships, and this is like their first time doing like a trip single.
Yeah.
And
it was like, really fun.
It was
also
fun.
A little terrifying. I've become, and I had no idea that this would even happen to me. When a cute guy looks at me now, I don't even know how to look at him. I'll just be like, okay. I like look away and then I'll walk away if I have to. It's like so embarrassing. I'm like, what am I, 13?
You like meet at the punch bowl?
No, I'd walk away from the punch bowl. I'd be like, oh, he's there. Oh, I'll come back later. I had gotten some questions from some friends about the whole, I know that it's kind of old news now, but the Aziz Ansari scandal, just because he's also Indian, right? I didn't know this, but he's actually also from the same part of India that I'm from, South India. So Tamil Nadu, yeah, we're from the same part of India. I didn't know. And so, you know, yeah, small world. I wish I could have been that girl. I'm totally kidding.
God, we're gonna get so many hateful comments.
I'm totally kidding. So anyway, I'm hearing about this whole thing, and then I'm like, you know what?
Really
I'm
nice,
gonna read.
guys, I promise you, we're really nice. We do read, and we both have our degrees. I'm like nervous because we're gonna get so many hateful comments right now.
It's fine. If you guys don't agree, then that's fine. These are our opinions, by the way. We are not affiliated with any news network. No, we are affiliated with ourselves. That is
in our own personal business.
So I didn't know about the whole story. So people are asking me, oh, what do you think? What do you think? And I'm like, you know, all I really know is what I've heard.
People just asking you because you're Indian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh because, well, so he won that award, right? He was the first Asian American to win an Oscar, which is really, really awesome, you know, because we have Oscar. Okay. I think it was an Oscar.
Oh,
so I'm like, okay, I need to read this story for myself. So we literally read the story maybe 5 minutes before we started filming, and it is exactly what we heard other people saying. Like, okay, so he met this girl at the Emmys, and he took her number down. They were texting. A week later, they went on a date. They went back to his place, and I guess he made advances, and she didn't appreciate that, so he called her a car, and then she went home. That is the story. That's what we read on CNN and Babe and Vanity Fair. Yeah, so we read all 3. That's what it said.
And the reason why we did this with advances is we weren't in the room. And like advances could
mean anything. Advances could mean he tried to kiss her.
Tried to hold her hand.
Tried to rip her shirt off. We don't know because we weren't there. Like maybe to her, she felt very violated. Like maybe he, I don't know what he did.
Maybe he did like this.
Yeah, like maybe.
And she felt uncomfortable.
There's certain things that like don't bother me. Like now, if he tried to have sex with me and I really didn't want to, you know, I would tell him like, you know, please stop, or, you know, like maybe that would bother me. But like little things, like if he held my hand or if he put his arm around me, I'm like, okay.
Or, like,
even if he grabbed my boob, like I might not care. He's Aziz Ansari.
In the comments here.
In the article, it also said that she sent him a text message afterwards saying, you paid no attention to my non-verbal cues. So she expected him to just read her body language, you know, because maybe she was like swatting him off of her, or maybe she was like pulling away when he tried to kiss her. I don't know. There was no details. It just said nonverbal cues. That's not good enough. If someone is talking to you or someone is, you know, groping you and you don't like it, you have to be very verbal, and you have to, you know, and it's uncomfortable. Like, trust me, like for me, I don't like being mean to people, but sometimes you have to, because you're standing up for yourself, you know, and you have to, especially if it's something that is disrespectful towards you, it makes you feel violated, then you know what, if you don't fight for yourself, nobody else will.
Yeah.
And that's why I like really believe that, you know, like girls need to be taught that only you. Your mom's not going to save you. Your friends are not going to save you. Your teacher's not going to save you. You have to save you. So,
and this is like just for every aspect of life.
Every aspect.
You're the only one that's going to fight the hardest for your life. It's not about always just standing up for yourself, being honest. It's also just letting that other person know, because they might not know that they're making you feel uncomfortable. They may have done that before to other girls, and those other girls were okay with it. You know, they don't know that that is making you uncomfortable. They're not being dicks. I mean, if they're really like grabbing you and grabbing your vagina, like that's always uncomfortable for everyone. You can't expect people to read your nonverbal cues the same way that you're going to read their nonverbal cues, right? There's so much things that get lost in translation. So you just really do have to use your words, which we all learn in like kindergarten, first grade, like use your words, and you really let them know, hey, like you putting your hand there is no, or, you know, not. And I know it goes back to like maybe people weren't taught to speak up. Maybe people don't want to be mean. Maybe people don't want to, maybe they feel like in that situation, maybe she felt like her career might end if she doesn't like do what he wants her to do or anything like that. But I don't know, you just have to speak up, and don't speak up because you're trying to like, if you don't feel comfortable speaking up because you don't want to speak up, like fighting for a cause or being a woman, then just speak up, because the other person definitely does need to know that that isn't not an okay thing.
At least for Indian culture, I feel like we're kind of taught like, you know, where you don't argue, you know, you don't argue with your parents, you don't argue with your husband, you don't do those things. And I mean, yeah, it's out of respect, but then you kind of lose your ability to be able to, you know, like fight for yourself, you know, and I think that's something that does need to kind of be taught. So the last night we were in New York, we went to this hookah bar and we went bar hopping, and there were these two guys that
they're both in their
kind
early
of tagged.
20s. Oh, God bless.
We're like tagging along with us, right?
They had no game.
And one of them was really, really annoying. You know what he did? He spilled a beer on me.
Oh yeah.
He snatched my phone out of my hand, and then he tried to kiss me while I was eating pizza, and then he has the nerve to be like, oh, come to my room later. I'm like, dude, you struck out on every single count, and you have the audacity to ask me to come to your room? Get out. I couldn't even believe it.
He came to our hotel room like 4 or 5 times.
I was hiding in the closet to hide from this guy.
I put coats over her.
I don't like being mean to people. Like, I try to like let them down nicely, but sometimes you need to like drop the hammer, because that guy was just...
And that's a very light example, right? This dude wasn't like super aggressive, but just annoying. But
he was just annoying. He was like a pest.
So that's like on one hand, like on one spectrum, right? But that's still annoying. That's still like, as a dude, if someone is like giving you the signals to like, no, just stop. Right? And that way you can end the night at least as like friends or something, or really cool acquaintances. Yeah, see, to me, that's harassment. Yeah. Because it's like, I've told you no a dozen times, and I'm a pretty easygoing person, you know, from California. I'm not gonna freaking call the cops on you or anything. I love the fact that you're like, we're from California. We don't call the cops unless you're trying to stab us, basically. We're like, because then we have to deal with the cops ourselves. I know, and it's like, oh God, we really want to do this. Our last night in New York. Oh, the cops might have had a cute New Yorker accent, though. Probably. Well, you struck out there, didn't we? I did strike out there. It's okay next time. Okay. Thank you so much, you guys, for tuning into today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. We were genuinely just having a really candid conversation with you. So feel free to leave us a comment down below. We would love to hear what you think. If there's any topics that you want us to cover next time, because we would like to continue to do videos like this together. Sexuality, sex, relationships, any other kind of like world issue that's going on right now, just let us know. Like if you want us to continue having these conversations. Or your comment could be like, no, do not have any more conversation, girls. We had enough of you. Enough. Simmer down. Get off of YouTube now. We'll respect that too. I would honestly respect that. If someone said, get off YouTube, I'd be like, oh, okay. Okay, that's you. I'm not going to get off, but have to report me to Google.
I know people there,
Yeah.
though, so don't even try.
She does.
Go follow Nicole. Check out her YouTube channel. She's amazing.
YouTube, all my social media links will be below, and the magazine. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole.
And then, of course, the information about this organization will be below. And I think, you know what, we'll also put, I'm going to make her put this, the phone number for, I think, like, what is it? Like, abuse hotline phone number. I don't know.
We'll link all of that down below, just so that you guys have it. If there's anyone that you know, or if you're in, you know, a negative relationship and you want to talk, please know that resources are there, and you know, like, we're always open to chat.
So feel free to message us, even if you just need to share, need to vent. You know, we're all over the place.
Resources are everywhere if you ask for it. Thank you so much again. We love you so, so much, and we will see you next time.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Mine too.
We look
shiny.
good.
Okay, we look great. We got this. Okay. Hi.
I know we are ending in, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Take 2, 45, I don't know what take 2 now. Okay. Oh my god, when I close my eyes, I can just see the room.
I'm going to think that, oh, no wonder she got divorced. She's a freaking hoe bag. Thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in to tape. Blech. One more time. Oh, this is still recording.
It is?
Do you like green tea?
No, I need caffeine in my tea. I think it's...
Is there caffeine in green tea?
Not usually, no. And I think it's stupid when people drink decaf coffee.
Oh, I do too. I'm like, what's the point? I never understood the point of that. I'm like, isn't the whole point? It's like caffeine.
Okay, that's like putting like 3/4 of soda in your rum and coke.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. We love you, and we will catch you next time. Bye. That was really cute.
You know what I realized the whole video? And I'm like, oh my god, my eyes are gonna look so funny.
Why?
I kept looking at that instead of the camera.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Yeah, I was like so fascinated by my face. All right.
I'm clearly. Ooh, this angle looks good.
I really hope it doesn't look bad.
You just realized that?
Because I see so many times young men, and especially young men of like color, because they think they need to be a certain way just to survive in this world, because the world is still very unfair to men of color, to hold in their feelings. And then they explode. And they explode always negative ways. Either drinking, breaking shit. I can't tell you how many times Nick has broken a bowl or something. And I'm like, his wife. I know. I know.
I totally just realized that this is still recording.
We did not realize that the camera was still on.
Oopsies. It's okay.
Can you turn it off, Natalie?
I don't feel like getting up. Did I really just say that?
You did, but you gotta keep that in there.
I know, I'm so keeping that in there.
Yeah, that's just amazing.
That was amazing. Okay, outro.
Again? Okay.
Yeah.